One of the keys to happy and healthy longevity is the ability to continue growing and adapting and reinventing. And truth be told, it's really more of a willingness than it is an ability, because the ability does reside in all of us. It's part of human nature. It's baked in because it is important to our individual survival. Life is about evolution, and not just for the species, but as individuals. But few of us, as we get older, exercise that ability. And, you got to wonder, is it because we don't know that we have it? Is it because we're afraid? Is it because our culture tells us it's not possible? Because family and friends don't encourage us? I think it's probably a good bit of everything. And when you get right down to it, that is pretty much why Growing Bolder actually exists. We want to be the voice that reminds you of your abilities and the opportunities. We're the voice that tells you that it is possible, so go for it. And the way we do that is by telling stories, by sharing the wisdom and the words and the relatable examples of others who have found their own way to keep moving forward as they get older. And I had a catch-up call with an old friend recently that reminded me about the excitement, about the power, about the benefit of self-expression. The example and inspiration of this friend and his willingness to help me is truly largely responsible for my 45-year career in the media. I was a swimming coach back in the day in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I started to watch a local news station in Phoenix, and I immediately became fascinated by the sports anchor. And this is a guy who didn't just break the mold of the typical sportscaster. He totally shattered it. He was unlike anybody I had ever seen on television. And this was pre-email. So one day I actually called the station. Somehow I got through to him. And I told him, I don't really have an ask. I was only calling to say that I admire your unique point of view. And I am in awe of your fearless creativity, because you got to be fearless to be creative. It's all about taking chances. I just wanted to encourage him. But he invited me to the station and we became fast friends. And I learned then that he never worked a single day in television until he was 31. And the way he got into television is he would lug an old 8mm movie projector from the office of one television executive to the other and project home movies that he had imagined and edited onto the walls, looking for a job as a reporter. And one after the other, they told him that he was unqualified. They said, you're too old, you're inexperienced, and oh yeah, you don't have the right look, and you will never get a job in television. But this is a guy who persisted, and finally, against all odds, he did talk his way into a part-time job that was paying him about $40 a week. And this is a 31-year-old married guy that had a couple of kids. Now, I had never even considered working in television, but his example made me realize, why not? It's possible. I realized I didn't need a degree in broadcast journalism. And with this guy's help, with his encouragement, I put together an audition tape. I pretended to be a freelance reporter in a major market, and I very quickly got a job in a small market that led to a 30-year on-air career and ultimately to becoming the founder of Growing Bolder. And I was not the only one that was blown away by this guy's storytelling ability. Within a year of landing that first part-time job, he was the main sports anchor on the CBS station in Phoenix. And a few months after that, the vice chairman of NBC was in Phoenix one night. He saw just one of his sports stories and offered him a job on the Today Show, which he accepted and he held for 32 years. Mike Leonard was the first television network correspondent to research, to produce, to shoot, to write, and to edit all of his own stories. I mean, this is the guy who pioneered a new broadcast journalism model that has literally changed the way the industry operates worldwide. Mike is a multiple Emmy award-winning reporter and producer. He's a celebrated filmmaker. He's a New York Times best-selling author whose lifelong quest has been to share stories of ordinary people and to celebrate common humanity. And on a recent catch-up call, I knew that I had to get Mike on this show when he shared with me that now at 76 years old, he feels like he's 19 because of his excitement over a new media project that not only is providing an outlet for his remarkable talent, but an opportunity to reconnect with the countless viewers and readers who followed him for years, an opportunity also to reach and now connect with a new generation who will very soon learn what makes Mike Leonard special, as will you right now, because Mike Leonard is going to join us from his home outside in suburban Chicago. Mike, how you doing today?
Mark, that's the best intro I've ever heard, man. The check will be arriving in the mail.
Yeah, well, thank you for enduring why I did it. And I didn't have to write it; I just have to remember it. You've been a good friend for many, many years, an inspiration to so many. And before we get into your new adventure, tell us a little bit about life in Chicago as a 76-year-old grandfather. I mean, how do you spend your days? And I'm guessing that as active as I know you are, you had to feel like something was missing, even given all that you have.
That's very true. I've always worked out of my house. Well, not always. Maybe after the first 7 or 8 years at NBC, I cut a deal where I could be by myself. And having 4 kids growing up, I wanted to be part of their lives. And so it was really terrific. You have to be self-disciplined. You have to do the work and all the rest. But I would wander around. As you know, writing happens anywhere. And I would take a pad and I would wander through town if I'm writing a Today Show piece. And a lot of folks knew what I did for a living, but those who didn't would see this guy wandering around with shorts and a t-shirt and a pad. And they think either he doesn't work or he's an inspector of some kind. But I love the freedom. And as you know, when you ask for freedom, you ask for responsibility too. So NBC gave me the freedom to pick my own stories. And I love that because I was always interested in the subject. A lot of times, perversely, people don't like that because there's no one to blame but yourself if the story isn't any good. You've heard it in newsrooms before. People go, "Oh, this is a lousy assignment. I'm just gonna get it over with and do it." And that's just not the way to go through life. So you take on the responsibility, and with the responsibility, you get the freedom. And I love that. Did over 1,000 stories at NBC, and most of them. Almost all of them of my choosing. Occasionally they would say, can you go to the Olympics or can you go to the Super Bowl or the Golden Globes or something? But do whatever you want when you get there. And I love that. And I always would go without a story to a bit of a desperation situation. So instead of carrying a story with me, I'd get there maybe 2 days ahead of time, say at a presidential inauguration, and just look around, desperate to find a story, basically. And I would always find one. And it would air, and people there would say, geez, that was great. Where did you find it? I say, it was right here. But I think if you restrict yourself and you're afraid of not finding a story, you'll just bring stories with you. You'll do the same story everybody else is doing. Pick it out of a newspaper and redo it. And I just didn't want to do that.
And in truth, I've learned a lot of lessons from Mike Leonard, folks. But that was the one that I learned from him. The first time I watched one of your features, Mike, I wondered, what the hell made this guy decide to tell this story? And when we chatted, you said, Mark, here's one of the credos, if you will, that I live by. If everybody's going to a softball tournament to do a story on the undefeated team, I'm going to find the team that's never won a single game, and that's the story that I want to do. And I built a career on doing exactly that. I never did a story on the star high school quarterback. I always did a story on the star high school quarterback's mother. And,
Right.
It is an interesting way into a story. The thing about you, Mike, is among many things, is you're a great writer. And I wonder, did you always know that you were a great writer because you were a college hockey player? You were not the kind of guy that I think did a lot of writing before you got into TV. Was that a skill you always had and just had to develop?
It's a really good question. I was a very poor student and I didn't know it. I didn't know why at the time, but it turns out that I'm dyslexic. So I had real problems reading. And when I talked, I kind of stumbled all the time because I just didn't know. And I didn't know what the problem was. And so in grammar school and in high school, I was maybe a D student. I never wrote anything. I mean, you have assignments and you write it, but I just copied the style that somebody else did. And so I never got good grades in writing. I didn't think I was a writer. But when I went to Providence in 1966, and I was the first Chicago kid to play Division I hockey, and I was only accepted on academic probation. So, and it was during Vietnam. So the thing is, if you got one F or two Ds, you're going to go to Vietnam, probably. So there's a lot of pressure, but I just felt that I could do it. I did make the hockey team. I managed to pass my courses, but I didn't have any money at the time. My girlfriend, now my wife, was going to school in Milwaukee. Kathy was going to Marquette. And I wrote a letter to her every single day for 4 years. And sometimes it would only be one page. And it was just me, not worried about punctuation or grammar, just telling her what was going on in life. And it was, like you say, a very interesting time, and the ups and downs of playing Division I sport and everything. And so when I finally got the chance to, try TV as a 31-year-old, and they said, do a story, I thought of the letters I wrote, and I wanted to tell it in a more personal way, a more casual way. And then I got confident once I started doing it, and people liked it. And then they say, you're really a good writer. And isn't that what writing is basically condensing your thoughts and passing them on in a way that's refreshing or interesting. A lot of people have said that if I were a better student, or if people actually tried to get in and say, okay, you need some special education, all the rest, that might not have happened. I think I had to be on the outside, wondering what was going on, why I wasn't passing, why I couldn't raise my hand in class, why I couldn't speak in public. I was terrified. And I had to figure that out. And I slowly came out of that. And that's why I think it took me till I was 31. But I feel very confident. I mean, I could not raise my hand. I don't think I ever did in high school. I can't remember doing it in college. I was afraid to speak. And then I ended up in a job where you're speaking live to 6 million people, and I wasn't afraid. And I think it was just that inch by inch failure. And then you get knocked down, or you goof up and you stutter or you stammer on TV, and you think, oh my goodness, everybody in the world saw that. And you wake up the next day and you're not dead, and you go, well, it wasn't so bad. And I think a lot of those situations got me to the point where I wasn't then afraid to try something new, because I wasn't like the rest. I didn't look like the rest. My face was beat up by hockey, and it wasn't a smooth talker. I wasn't a Bob Costas or anything like that. So I wanted to get into the soul of the story and then soul of the people that I was talking to, and that's why, like you, I would go toward the center on the football team, the guy who protects the quarterback rather than the quarterback, and get a different perspective. And I want to tell a real quick story. I was at an airport one time in Rhode Island, and a guy recognized me, started talking to me, and he was headed out on a business trip. And I asked him about his life, and he said he was an accountant or something. He said, but I'm also the bullpen catcher for the AAA baseball team in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, the Red Sox farm team, top farm team. I said, oh, really? How long? He said, I've done it for about 8 or 9 years, and it's great, but I'm gonna retire because my kids are getting old and I miss seeing them. And I started thinking about, he's retiring from a game that he's never played. He wears a uniform. He's in the bullpen. These guys who are going up to the major leagues or going down from the major leagues or hoping to make the major leagues are warming up, and this guy's catching it. And fans are asking him for his autograph because they see him in a uniform. He goes to a party at night, and they say, what do you do? I'm the bullpen catcher. He goes, oh, wow. And now he's going to quit that. And he's going to be, and it's funny, his name was Joe. He's going to be an average Joe. So no more, hey, I'm Joe. I'm the bullpen catcher. Just, I'm Joe, the dad. And I said, I want to do your story. And he goes, for the Today Show, he goes, on a bullpen catcher? The guy who never plays? I said, exactly. And it was one of my favorite stories. And like many of the people I've profiled, we've become friends. And so and it was Joe Bosio. And I just love the story because most of us aren't headliners. Most of the kids, if we have kids, aren't the star quarterbacks. A lot of them ride the bench or don't even make the team. And I gravitate more towards that. And that's the real stuff. That's what life is all about.
Mike, I was trying to explain to someone recently what makes your work special, someone that, was younger and didn't follow you when you were on the Today Show. And what I found myself saying is that Mike Leonard's work is remarkable in an unremarkable way. I mean, it doesn't scream in a world that now rewards screaming, It's been apparent from the beginning that you don't write to impress. You are clever without being outrageous. It's never look at me. It's always let me celebrate you. It's not about bizarre behavior, which is very easy to report on. It's about your ability, and I think you just nailed it, your ability to make simple, common behavior interesting and inspiring. Is that, in a nutshell, what's made you successful?
Perfect. And I remember one time just musing about things and trying to figure out what to do a story on. And somebody said, "Oh, any Joe Blow can do this." And I thought to myself, there's got to be somebody out there named Joe Blow. So it was before the internet, and I, you call directory assistants. Yes, and I say, yeah, Joe Blow, anywhere USA. And anyway, I found a guy named Joe Blow, and he was an older man in Texas. And the idea of the story was just a profile on your average human being who happened to have a funny name. So I didn't make fun of Joe. We laughed about it and the predicaments that he would have when he tried to make reservations in a restaurant and things like that. But it was a really cool story to me because it was in praise of all the other Joe Blows out there. And he typically, because he was not a star, he kept saying, "I don't know why you're here, man. I don't think I'm that interesting." And I said, "Oh, you are." And at the very end, after 2 days of hanging with him and him asking me why I'm interested, he goes, "I don't know if you'd be interested in this, but I have an old yellowed photograph of me meeting a guy named John Doe." I go, "Yeah, I want to see that." Anyway, it was a cool story. And I would always make sure that it's too easy, as you know, to go in and kind of make fun of people, right? And then leave, you never see them again, right? And I guess I've been, criticized a lot in my life, and I've gotten used to it in a sense, but it's not fun. And I don't want to be that guy who goes in and does it. And another thing is, I did a story one time. I always did stories on where the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree came from. And they sent me out there. Nobody else did the story because they didn't want the notice of where the tree was in case the vandals, appeared. And one of the guys was, the tree happened to be on his yard. He's a tiny little house, but they find it by helicopter, asked if the people could donate to Rockefeller Center. And he said yes. And he was a fireman, New York City fireman who played a role in 9/11. So when the Rockefeller Center people were telling me this, they're saying, "Oh yeah, it's great. He's this hero, And I thought, well, certainly I'm not going to start with that because that's too cliched. It maybe halfway through it, we'll learn that, and I'll go to the firehouse. And I went to the firehouse and I said, there's 30 firemen there. I said, who's the oldest person here? And there was a guy who was about 60. And he's a captain. I said, I want to interview him too, because I know from dynamics that even though the fireman I was profiling was humble, he'd get grief. People would kind of make fun of him, say, "Oh, you're a hero now. You're a big TV star." But I knew if I got the older guy in the same story, then this fireman wouldn't get that typical blowback after you leave. There's always this comedy, but it's also a little bit of resentment sometimes. So I think it's that sensitivity of, I don't want to leave and have their life be made worse by my presence. And I stuck to that. I think too is, my dad and mom, my dad, lost his life savings a couple of times. Good guy, wasn't a star, from Jersey. And he was just a good man. And my mom was a good woman. And I kind of looked at these story subjects as, well, what if it were your parents or your brother or your sister? How would you treat them? Would you go for the quick laugh and then see them feel sad about it? And I just, I'm not a great guy, but I just felt sensitivity towards that.
Before we share with everybody what you're doing now and how they can consume it, because folks, you want to do it, talk a little bit about your interest in the common man and what you've learned, if you will, because for decades, Mike, you went from New York City to Des Moines, Iowa to Alabama. And, you did stories that really did connect people across all walks of life in America. And it's back in the day, and it really wasn't that long ago. I say all the time, I can remember when I would meet somebody and had no idea what their politics were and really didn't care. You know, they were great, friendly people. It seems like yours is a voice, Mike Leonard, that we need now more than ever. Are you frustrated by what you see in today's culture, given to what you know about humanity, what you learned over those 32 years doing
Oh,
what you're doing?
that's why I'm doing it. And I am frustrated, and always towards the end of my career, you detect that the news business is shifting, and they're going more towards live because they're paying the anchors and the hosts so much that they want them on the kit and on the air all the time. And they seem to lose interest in regular people and those stories that would bind the country together. So let's say it's a conservative part of the South or something, and NBC is there and they profile a farmer, and the people go, "Wow, NBC is here," and they notice us. And you go back, and we didn't talk politics or anything, or if I'm in a liberal town, and the same thing happens, and you go that they knew that the media, even if it was one person at town, was attracting attention for a good reason, they felt noticed. And then when it stopped, a lot of those folks, and for other economic reasons, felt unnoticed. But I've been in every red and blue state around, and what I am continually frustrated about is that we've been divided by forces who want us to divide. I have great friends in Cajun country, Louisiana, and it's a conservative part of the country. I have great friends in Greenwich Village, that's a liberal part, and we never talk politics. We just talk about life, and they're still my friends. And but I find more and more today that if, let's say, you're a liberal and someone says, "Do you want to go down to rural Texas with me?" People go, "No, I don't want to go down there." That's the opposition. And then rural Texas, you say, "You want to go to San Francisco?" We go, "No, no, I don't want to be with those freaks in San Francisco." And they don't know each other. And it's become that. And so I've always thought that the media was really remiss and going for the star treatment, the celebrity treatment, the scandals treatment, and politics 24 hours a day, and not telling the stories about real people. And when you see them, you're inspired by them, and they unite us. And so, yeah, but it's, you're yelling into a hurricane force of money and influence and ratings, and the thing is, the ratings aren't good anymore. The audience has dipped, so it didn't work. But they're not going to change. So we were talking about this new venture I'm on. I for great, my agent was great, and I got ownership of my pieces. So I did over 1,000 of them, and they're on everyday people, and they're funny, they're sentimental, they're the whole mix, and they've only been seen once. And so I thought, wow, how do I get them on? I can't convince a TV station to do it. They're just doing politics 24 hours a day. And then this new thing, what's called Substack. It's for writers. It's a email, a thing that comes out. It's a page. It's a platform, and people sign up, and it's for writers. And there's no ads, and there's no spam. There's nothing like that. You can write what you want, and you can put video there, and you can put pictures there, all on one page. So you get it. You don't have to go to a link. There's nothing else. A lot of this, and then there's paid content if you so desire to, and I have some. But most of my posts are free. I have a great amount of material there that's free, and some, because of the time and work it takes to produce, is under a paywall. But it's cheap. It's $6 a month or something. But I have felt all of a sudden, well, by doing this, I've done 6 or 7 so far, once a week. I feel more creative than I've ever been in my life, which is incredible. I mean, the great entree you had today when you opened the show, that why don't we believe that? Well, I don't know why other people don't believe in us, and we stop believing in ourselves. But musicians or painters or astronomers, if they love what they do, they're going to do it until they die. And I love being able to pass on this information, write it to connect it to our present day life, add a bit of humor if I need to, show pictures of my life and my family and our ups and downs and our humorous things, and it's really connecting. And what I think it's going to do, of course, will it change everything? No, but it will make a difference, because you will see these people from Louisiana and these people from San Francisco and all these folks sharing in this life that we have. And it's just maybe one candle in a whole sea of darkness, but it is a candle. And I know that when I look at these old stories myself, I feel hopeful and I feel encouraged. And I do believe that we need more hope and encouragement, but not in a sappy, melodramatic, way, in a real way, and let those voices be heard. And the feedback I got is incredible so far. So I feel blessed that the world has evolved to allow that kind of thing. An internet situation, and something comes to your email that allows the video on it. So all the technology caught up, and now not just me, but anybody on Substack can have a voice. And I think whether you have 10 followers or 10 million followers, it's just beautiful to be able to connect with human beings on a level that I think is very, very encouraging, funny sometimes, like I say, sentimental or sad. But lessons are told, usually not by me, by the people who have taught me those lessons. I'm just passing them on. And Mark, we're messengers, like we're delivery boys and girls. And the best thing is to not goof up the package, right? Just get it to the people in good shape, and not, write your name all over the package. Like, hey, look at me, I'm the delivery boy. The best thing is to deliver that, whatever that is, to make people feel good, and step back a little bit and let them enjoy it.
That said, Mike, I'm a subscriber, by the way, to Mike Leonard's Substack, and we'll tell you
It's
how
called
you can
Leonard's
become
Look. Yeah.
Leonard's Look. And
Leonard's Look.
And the cool thing about it is, because I've obviously not seen all 1,000 of your stories. I hope to one day, but I've seen a lot of them. And the way you do it is I just love the way that you will. It isn't just, hey, here's the story.
Right.
It is embedded in Mike Leonard's writing, which will have a digression at some point and show a photo that was taken backstage or relates to the topic at hand. And then you move a little bit further, and eventually you get to the video that was one of his award-winning videos on the Today Show. So it really, really is cool. And Mike, one thing I want to ask you about is, I mentioned in the introduction that you're a New York Times best-selling author. Just a fascinating story, and I don't want to tell it. I want you to tell as much of it as you want. But Mike decided, and I've told this story to so many people, because I think it just represents not just how clever you are, but what a great family man you are. Mike decided that he wanted to take his aging mom and dad basically on a final lap around America, stopping at every important touch point in their life: the hospitals where their kids were born, the graveyard where one of their children died, their high schools, their colleges, the homes where they got married, all of this. So he put his family, his mom and dad, his family, his kids, in an RV, 2 RVs, and they drove around the country. And as I understand the story, Mike, you told NBC you wanted to do it, and they said, yeah, great, go ahead, take some time off. And when they fully understood what you were going to do, and they knew the quality with which you would do it, all of a sudden they said, okay, don't take some time off. Let's make this one of your stories. So Mike produced a series on this that, became an iconic series, led to this best-selling book. So I have told it all, Mike, and I apologize. Fill in the blanks and tell me, will you do any of that on your new Substack?
Yes. Well, yes. It's been 20 years since that happened. And so I've often thought of doing it, breaking up into little 5 or 6 minute segments and go through the whole journey, because it could be 60 episodes. I mean, it was a remarkable human journey that I didn't expect it would be quite like that. So yes, on Substack coming up, maybe this summer, I'm going to start a weekly, just put that thing together again. And what happened was, originally my dad didn't have much money, and he was in Arizona and living in an apartment that was not close to anything. And so my dad's a gregarious guy, and so is my mom, and they couldn't talk to many people. And I felt sorry for them. And I don't know, one night I just had this thought of RVs, and we're not RV people. And I think part of it was to give them mobility, right? To show them, bring them back to places that were important, and show them places they've never seen or will never see again. So we picked them up in Arizona, and also our oldest daughter was we were expecting our first grandchild in March, and so I picked him up in January, thinking that we could time it and to be in Chicago when my daughter had her baby. Of course, you can't predict those things, and my wife was going, "This is nuts. You're not RV people, and the baby, you don't know what's going to happen." And anyway, there was drama with the baby and some complications, but it all worked out. And my parents on this trip, I'm one of four boys, but we had an older sister who died when my dad and mom were in the Navy in New London during World War II, and they hardly ever talked about it. And I wanted to bring them back there. But as I got to the graveyard, as we got to New Haven or New London, I kept kind of trying to edge into the conversation, and it seemed like they didn't want to go there yet. So we went to the graveyard ourselves, and I left a daughter-in-law with my parents, and we said we're going to go look at or buy groceries, and we went. And we were looking for the gravestone or little plaque for this girl, this baby. Couldn't find it. The graveyard worker was there, and he had a map, and he said, "Yeah, a lot of these plaques get ripped up by the lawnmower, and they're gone." And so I thought, this little baby is not even a mark that this child lived. And so he took his big stick, and he scratched out a square on the grass as the baby's there. Anyway, so we filmed it, and it was part of the 4-part Today Show piece that came on. And I thought I had to call my mom and dad before it aired and say, tomorrow, I didn't tell you, but we went to the graveyard. And so it was emotional for them. But then I decided, my dad got sick after that, got cancer, lost an ear, and I wanted to go back to certain places that I want to revisit a last time. And so I took my parents on a second trip, and this time it was a train trip and some rental cars. And I had a headstone made, and my mom didn't know that. And so I said, "Let's go to the graveyard." And she was crying, and I didn't want to film that. And my son was in the back seat with her. Anyway, we go there, and she goes to the grave, and there's this stone, and Leonard, one day. And I thought to myself, what did I do that for? Why am I just trying to be a hero? Why did I film that? What's wrong with me? Why did I have to put the camera out there at all? But after it aired on the Today Show, I got so many letters from people, from women saying, "Thank you for doing that. I lost a child, and they just expect us to go on," And so I thought, I was honest with myself, thinking, am I trying to be this heroic character? And maybe part of me was trying to do that, but it ended up being so, uplifting to people who lost babies. Another thing is too, my dad he died at the age of 94. He was 87, I think, when we took the trip. But when he died, they had a big thing on the Today Show about my dad. The guy had no money, right? He was a salesman. And they're saying, "We're sorry to say that Jack Leonard died today." And they had clips from the show. And also that piece, that the whole Ride of Our Lives things. I have never in my life done a story that got the reaction. Even today, somebody will recognize me and they say, "Oh, that thing you did with your parents." So I know when it comes back, and I want to build up the Substack audience big enough, because I think people will see themselves in it, and really be lifted, because we're going through the country. We're going through Cajun country. We're going up the East Coast. We're going all this places. My mom and dad are funny characters, but there's an element of sentimental, sometimes heartbreak, sometimes joy, sometimes laughter. And it's everybody's story. It sounds like a cliche, but it's everybody's story. So that's going to be part of it. And I was always waiting for, 20 years might be a good time to do it, because the country has changed. It's one of those situations to say, "Hey, folks, we got to do this together. We got to get through this thing." The last thing about the RV is that people would say, "Oh, I love that. I could never do it." because we'd be fighting each other. Our family would be fighting. And I said, well, we're no different, but you just can't let that happen. So if some friction happens, you got to get it out. And no, this is not going to simmer and go on for days. Just the same thing with our country. We gotta come together. And so we did. It was possible. Did I annoy my parents? Sure. And did they annoy me? Yeah. And same with everybody. But we laugh about it. We get over it. And I think that's the great sense of possibility that we have as a country too.
A voice we need now more than ever is Mike Leonard's. And Mike, help us wrap this up. I get that there really is a moral inside every story that you tell, but that said, you have had a unique front row seat to life. The big events, the small moments. You've known the superstar celebrities, the humble, common man. You've seen the ambition and the fear and the success and the struggle. What have you learned about life? I mean, is there a big moral to the story of life that you've learned over the years?
Sure. I mean, we have way more in common than people give us credit for. We're human beings, and of course, and through the course of history, wars happen usually by leaders who try to get the people to not be, sharing things and knowing how much they have in common. But I always talk to people. I skate. I still play hockey. I don't play any games, but I skate on open ice in the day every week. And I ran into a black man who works at the rink as a custodian. And I just started, hey, how you doing? Good. And we started talking. And I was listening. And I was on my way to put my skates on. And it was maybe a 5-minute conversation. And his name was Stacy, I remember. And I'm like, hi, Stacy. He said, well, nice to meet you. And he looked at me and I wasn't condescending. I was interested in what he did. And he was kind of almost saying thank you with his eyes for talking to me. People are invisible. And I know that this project brings more visibility to, us, right? I mean, people who we can relate just by being kind and being funny and it is a slog, right? It's ups and downs and you get knocked down. And I failed so many times. I think that's why I was not afraid to be creative, because I'd already failed a lot in school and all that. And I'm still alive. So I believe I was blessed with the ability to listen and reflect. I'm just got a reflector shield, and I'm taking your story and reflecting it to another audience. And if I can be that conduit, then I've had a good life. And I feel so excited at 76 to be this free creatively. And Mark, I started writing, and I hadn't written that kind of thing in a while, and it started coming back. And my wife goes, "You're enjoying this?" I said, "I really am. It's like a paintbrush back in my hand, or a guitar in my hands, or something." And there's a bigger reward at the end of it, because these stories are inspiring, and they inspire me, and I know they will inspire people.
And then finally, Mike, just to make sure the folks that we've inspired to want to follow your stories, it's Leonard's Look, and it's on Substack. So just go to substack.com and look for Leonard's Look.
Yeah. That's Leonard's Look was the little tagline that the Today Show started putting on my pieces. So I thought, well, I'll just use that same thing, because there's probably other Mike Leonards, but it's this Mike Leonard's Look, Mike Leonard's Look, and you could find it, and you can subscribe for free, and then every week or every 6 or 7 or 8 days you get an email with stories and pictures and stuff, and then for the paying part there's extra stuff. But you don't need the extra stuff if you don't want. I mean, I'll tell you the story, you'll see the main stuff. The extra stuff is cool. It's behind the scenes things. But yeah, that's how they get it. And Mark, I've never been a salesman, so I'm not really great at pitching myself. But and I don't know anything about algorithms and all that, or I'm not blasting it out on Twitter. But I think it's better if it's just one by one. Just let's get together. And I'm not looking to be famous or rich or anything. I just want to share this stuff, because I was, like I say, blessed to be in the company of those people who have done some cool things in life, and again, it gives me hope.
Well, you give us hope, Mike Leonard. Thank you so much, folks. It is Leonard's Look. And take a look, because you will see the beauty of life. You'll understand the importance of connection, the common threads that bind us all of it, revealing the importance of friendship and the strength of our family ties. Unfortunately, most of it hidden in plain sight that we don't take the time to see. But when you check out Leonard's look, you will see it and you'll begin to celebrate it. And, I think Tom Brokaw said it best when he said, quote, "Mike Leonard is a national treasure."